Welcome to my budget predictions vlog, which is the one I like doing best each year. And I'm going to try and answer two questions. So the first is, what do I predict will happen on the 30th of October? And the second is, what would I do if it was me? I'm going to start with that one. And my answer is, I wouldn't have signed off on a manifesto that committed to no changes to the three taxes that raise the vast majority, nearly 75% of the total tax revenues that the Treasury receive each year. And that's because it's made Rachel Reeves' jobs almost mission impossible. She's fishing for this £22 billion black hole that she feels that she's inherited from the previous government, from actually a very small pot indeed. Now, let's just do a quick recap on that 22 billion black hole. It's largely driven by two things, although not exclusively. It's the increase in public sector pay, and it's also the cost of looking after asylum seekers appropriately as they come to the UK. And it isn't a static number because it's impacted by things like interest rates. So in the same way as for us as individuals, if interest rates fall, that's good news for us. It's good news for the government as well because their cost of borrowing reduces. And it's also impacted by the economy and how quickly it's growing. And if it outperforms against forecasts, then naturally there's an increase in the amount of tax that gets raised. So the government have really two types of things that they can do. They can either cut spending to try and reduce that hole, and we've seen them do things like shelving some infrastructure projects, and also really rather controversially, the changes to the winter fuel payment, and everything else rests on the tax increases that they will look to make as part of Rachel Reeves's inaugural budget in October this year. Now, the media have largely focused on the potential capital gains taxes and inheritance tax changes. So let's consider those. Well, there was a clear statement of intent in relation to a particular part of capital gains, and that's for carried interest for anybody that is in the private equity space. It's of particular concern for them. Rachel Reeves considers it to be a loophole and was alluding to the fact that there may be an increase to income tax rates. So my prediction is that we will see a raise of that rate. I don't think she'll go all the way to income tax rates. So my prediction in relation to that in particular is that we'll see something that starts with a 3. But what about capital gains tax more broadly? Well, I may end up regretting saying this. I'm not exactly feeling warm and glowy, but I'm saying that I feel more positive than I potentially did a few weeks ago. And I think what we'll see is something that's a bit more modest than we may be fearing. So I predict that we might see a further reduction or removal altogether of that capital gains tax allowance. Jeremy Hunt, her predecessor, had previously slashed it down to 3,000. I wonder if that might disappear altogether. Similarly, for business asset disposal relief, which is the poor relation to entrepreneurs relief, remember those glory days, I think that might enter the tax graveyard, which would seem appropriate given the time of year. But I'm feeling quite optimistic about the headline rate, and I think that if we do see a change, the absolute ceiling would be up to 28%. Famous last words. One other area that I think we might see movement is on pension contributions, and it's not had quite the same press attention, but removing the higher rate tax relief for pension contributions, limiting it to basic rate, could raise as much as 15 billion for the Treasury. So I think that is definitely something that could form a focus of this budget. There's also something else that Rachel Reeves could do. At the moment, there's a tax-free lump sum at 25% that can be withdrawn. And if that was put at an actual figure, so the number that's been floated is 100,000, that could raise an extra 2 billion. So 17 billion from some rather subtle changes to the way that pensions operate. But it wouldn't be Halloween if we weren't talking about death taxes. For the Labour Party, this is something that they see as a way to address the redistribution of wealth. And so I do think we probably will see some changes. Now, one thing that they could look to do is to tax lifetime gifts differently. So it's not all focused on estate planning, and that would have the kind of dual benefit of accelerating the timing of when some of these types of liabilities were paid. There's also the potential to remove that CGT uplift that people benefit from when something enters into the death state. The one question in relation to IHT that my clients are particularly concerned about is business relief. Now, I don't think in this budget we're going to see anything that fundamentally overhauls the way business relief works, but I do wonder if we might see the definition change slightly to exclude AIM listed shares. Now, if that were the case, whilst it would be a positive thing in terms of IHT coming in, it would definitely be a negative for what is already a largely illiquid AIM market in the UK. So they're my predictions. I will be doing a vlog very soon after Rachel Reeves delivers her first budget, and we'll see just how much I got right, and I'll talk you through the changes that we do end up having.